Welcome to another episode of Dr. Brooke on the Block. It's time to grab a seat, buckle up, and take a ride with me through the wild, wild west of the Web3 universe, where we're going to learn all about coins and tokens, NFTs and contracts, digital real estate and the metaverse, and so much more. There's a lot to get through on the block, but I am here to pave the way and help you avoid those nasty pitfalls and rug pulls so you don't get hurt. I'm going to also introduce you to some interesting characters along the way. Are you ready? Your ride starts now. What's up? What's up? Dr. Brooke here for another episode of Dr. Brooke on the Block. I am joined by my co-pilot today, Joe De Pinto. How do you say that last name?
You got it, De Pinto. Yeah,
De Pinto. Awesome.
I get a lot of different things, but yeah.
Well, Joe was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, and after spending 4 years playing professional baseball with the Chicago White Sox farm system, he co-founded his first venture, BarPay, in 2015 with Daniel Wagner. In January of 2021, whoop, whoop, I'm the class of 2021 into the blockchain space as well. Along with Wagner, he co-founded Haste, which is the world's first instant leaderboard payout arcade. De Pinto's vision for Haste is to have the platform serve as a fun and entertaining visual representation of microtransactions and how they can empower the new business model. Welcome to the show, Joe. So happy you're here.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So to kick things off, like I like to ask every single one of my co-pilots before we start the actual ride and get through everything, I want to know, what is your origin story into Web3? Some people say we're not fully there in Web3 yet. So kind of as we're transitioning into Web3, how did you get here? How did that January 2021 incident happen for you?
Sure. So, you hit on my background, obviously being in baseball before any of this stuff. And while I was in the minor leagues with the White Sox, I met Dan Wagner, who was one of my teammates. He's from North Carolina. I'm from the West Coast, Los Angeles area. And basically, we were roommates together, and we had very similar ideas about life after baseball and what we wanted to do. And kind of, we never really wanted to work for someone else. We wanted to start our own ventures and build our own companies. And we just had a lot of synergies in the way that we thought about things and what we wanted to do after. And so through our experiences in the minor leagues, the typical day in the life of a minor leaguer is, you play your game at 7 o'clock at night, game ends around 10 or 11 o'clock. You're still in the clubhouse. You got to get a workout in. You've got to get out of there and get back to the hotel before curfew, which is usually 45 minutes to an hour after the game ends. And so you're constantly hurrying, where am I going to get food? Now the game's over, all the restaurants are closed. All you've got really is, these bars and late night taverns that stay open, but you're always in a rush. And so when you do that enough times and you're traveling, from small town to small town in a bus, you forget your credit card sometimes. You leave your card at the bar, or it takes, 10 minutes to get a bartender's attention to close out or something like that. And we just kept having the same problems over and over again, to the point where one night we were in our rooms just talking about man, what if there was a way to kind of simplify that entire process? There's an app for everything these days. Why can't I go to a bar and order and pay for my food now, right from my phone, which it seemed like it would solve our original problem. So that was in about 2014. We both got released that same year. I got released mid-season. I think Dan, after the season ended, his contract was up and he decided not to re-sign with anybody. But we kept in touch. I was on the West Coast, he was on the East Coast. And we were this idea that we had for the bar concept, it seems like it would have some legs. And so I went to USC out here. I had a really good connection with the owner of the only bar really at that school at the time, which is called the 901. It's a legendary college bar. And basically went to the owner, showed him our idea for this app where you could order and pay. And in essence, we ended up launching it there. But he gave us a bunch of feedback, this owner, on his pain points. And one of them, which ties into how we got on the whole Bitcoin world, was credit card processing fees. So
yes.
Us being baseball players, not really having a background in any of this stuff, we're now learning about why it costs anywhere from 2 to 4% to the merchant anytime someone swipes a credit card. And the example that someone, a purchaser might have is if you go to the gas station and you're going to buy something for less than $5, you know, with a credit card, they say we're going to add on a 50-cent, you know, fee. Well, that's because they're getting hit with a merchant processing rate that's really eating into their margins. So we had to learn about all that stuff. And this was around 2014, 2015. That same time, you know, Dan came across this Bitcoin thing. We were also doing some like day trading on Robinhood because they come out and you can do like free trades, and we're trying to make like, you know, 5 cents a day. If we do this enough times, we'll get rich. But basically the market would close right on Friday afternoons. And all of a sudden Dan's like, dude, I found a market that never closes and you can trade for free. And at the time it was called GDAX, which has eventually turned into Coinbase Pro. But in essence, we just started trading. And back then it was only BTC. It was only Bitcoin. This was before Ethereum had even launched. But after, you know, a couple of weeks of doing this, we started looking further into like, well, what is this thing actually? Like, why is it gone from, you know, $1 4 or 5 years ago to $800, $900 now? And then since we started getting involved, even like doubled, went to like $1,500 in the couple of weeks that we have been doing it. And it was just like, man, there's something really interesting here. And so we dove deeper into technology, read the white paper a bunch of times, you know, got a much more thorough understanding of what this entire blockchain technology is capable of. And we started thinking like, wow, you know, the promise here is extremely cheap transactions. So, you know, a fraction of a cent. You have, you know, peer-to-peer electronic cash, which is the title of the white paper.
Right.
And then it's also a lot faster than the traditional credit card, where it takes 24 to 48 hours for the funds to actually hit the merchant's bank. So in essence, we just, you know, through our research in BarPay, we were like, man, this would be a really cool technology at some point. If we could implement it, we could probably like undercut the entire credit card market. So we never actually got around to doing that and putting it into BarPay. BarPay still exists today. We got several thousand accounts now that are using our QR codes for digital menus or order and payment services, but we haven't built blockchain into it yet. It's just, there's been so much going on with blockchain, so many different chains popping up. The price volatility is something that would probably scare owners away from actually accepting that in their bar or restaurant. But it still got us, you know, looking at this Bitcoin thing. And as you know, once you go down that rabbit hole, like there's no coming back. Like it's a black hole.
You are in, and you're in the rabbit hole, and it only gets deeper and deeper and deeper.
Exactly. So that was basically how we got into the space to begin with. And then as that led to Haste in 2021, it's funny, you know, Dan's introduced quite a few people to Bitcoin, whether it was BTC or when that forked into BCH. Us personally, we were looking at the utility of both of those coins. And from our point of view, it seemed like BCH, Bitcoin Cash, just it stayed true to the white paper more than BTC at that point. And this was 2017-ish when you had the fork. And basically, you know, you have this new narrative of digital gold popping up around BTC. And from our point of view, it was like, that didn't make sense. That wasn't what originally had attracted us to Bitcoin. We liked the idea that you could use it for casual payments and it's faster and cheaper than credit cards. So, you know, sold all my BTC into BCH, which thinking like, obviously everyone's going to do this, and wrong about that.
Oh no.
But then along those same lines, you know, about a year or so later, you have another fork of Bitcoin Cash into Bitcoin SV, which we, again, we're like, you know what, this follows the white paper as closely as any blockchain that's out there. You can still use it for peer-to-peer cash transactions. And they're talking about, you know, making these block sizes something that's scalable to global adoption, meaning you can process millions and millions of transactions per second. Whereas on the other chains, we didn't feel like, you know, that was going to be possible. So again, I sold all my BCH into Bitcoin SV when that fork happened. And so far, that hasn't, from a monetary standpoint, paid off. But in essence, being in the BSV world and building with that blockchain, we were basically in 2021 sitting there like, man, it just seems like something's been lost in translation as to what this technology can actually do. And so what can we build that's just super simple that I can show my parents or my friends and be like, hey, like, you guys are talking about Bitcoin, you're talking about thinking blockchain's the next big thing. Here's why. Like, I can take this quarter and split it up 100 different ways and send each of you a fraction of a cent, you know, for playing a game and making a leaderboard. So, you know, the classic example we always give is, if you went to an old school arcade, you play Pac-Man, you put your quarter in the machine. If you get on a leaderboard, all you get to do is write your initials. Well, with the Haste Arcade and with Micropayments, you now can spend 25 cents or 10 cents or 1 cent, whatever you're comfortable with, get on a leaderboard that can be 100, and in theory, it could be thousands of people long. And basically anyone that plays after you, as long as you're on a leaderboard, you're going to get a fraction of their gameplay. So it'll be a 100th of a cent or a 1,000th of a cent. But at the same time, you're now able to monetize things that you're already doing because of micropayments. And so that was what got us, to build the Haste Arcade. And that was what we wanted to demonstrate to people. It's more to us about the utility of blockchain and what it can enable in terms of new business models. So it's a long way to explain how we got into it, but there you go.
I love it. There's a lot to unpack there. There's one thing that popped up immediately as you were even just in that last little piece that you had shared. So are people putting in, they're connecting their wallets. I did see on the website, they're connecting their wallets to play the games. Are they putting BTC in, or are they putting BSV in? What? Yeah.
So we have there's a couple of different ways people can play. Every game we have is also free. So, right now play we call it play and earn. There's play to earn, but we think it's play and earn, or at least that's what we promote. And there's a lot of people, mainstream gamers that just aren't comfortable yet with crypto in gaming, NFTs in gaming and that type of stuff, which is fine. We want them to come, they can play for free and kind of experience the arcade and see the games that we have in there and whatnot. But for those that are comfortable with play and earn, BSV is the actual coin that we use. However, we have an exchange like within the arcade. So you can come with BTC, with Ethereum. I think Doge is another one we support, USDC. Okay. Most of the main coins, there's like 5 or 6 that you can exchange right on the platform into BSV, and then you can exchange back out, if you want to keep Ethereum or if you want to keep BTC. That's something that you're able to do as well. So cool. You can do it either way.
Cool, awesome. And so right now, as is, it's all just kind of a Bitcoin based on the Bitcoin blockchain. None of I guess in the future, do you guys have plans to do cross chains where people can come in like from a Solana blockchain or Cardano or any of those others?
Yeah, we would love to, and this is one of the things, the Bitcoin SV blockchain, the reason we've built on that at this point is it really is the only chain that can facilitate what we need personally. So we're chain agnostic. Like we have other products that we're going to be launching and trying to incorporate other chains. Like Solana is very interesting to me because you can do, transactions really fast for really small amounts. But the way that the arcade works with the leaderboard payouts, like we need hundreds, if not thousands of outputs for every transaction. And we also need a UTXO model as opposed to account-based model. So basically, like we talked to some of the developers over at Solana and we said, hey, this is what we've got. From what we've seen, it seems like this chain could facilitate it. What's the output structure like per transaction? And where they were at the time, and I think where they still are, is they said that we could do about 30 to 40 outputs per transaction. So right now, that's not quite enough for what we're doing. BSV does, like I said, we can do thousands of outputs for one transaction. But as time goes on, I'm sure, blockchains will evolve and they will enable, more outputs and be able to facilitate what it is specifically we're looking for. So yeah, in the future, I'd love to have as many coins as possible with some, type of tie into the arcade.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like there's a lot that it can expand into. So right now it's kind of like where the blockchain world is currently. There's still a lot of moving pieces and a lot of things to be worked out. But then over time, it's going to evolve and it's going to expand, and you're going to be able to support multiple different ones. You talked about the putting the token into the arcade, the 25-cent quarter, and being able to fractionalize it into different pieces. I read on the website that coin in, coin out concept, or that feature that you guys have. I think it's really cool. Yeah. I want you to go into a little bit more depth. If this is the time that you want to do some screen sharing, by all means, just let me know. We can do that. But
I'll actually demo a quick game right here. And I will show you how these payouts actually work. So when you hear coin in, coin out, you'll understand what I'm saying. But this is the arcade in general. So these are, the handful of games that we have so far. And
you're just right. Sorry, Joe, just for the people who might be listening, you're on hastearcade.com.
Yeah, this is hastearcade.com. It's a
Got it.
website. You don't have to download an app or anything like that. If you have a hand cash wallet, that is the wallet that we use right now for payments within the arcade. You can sign in with hand cash, or you can sign in traditionally with like a Google or a Twitter account, or you just create a Haste account. But basically, this is the arcade. The games that are in here are, some are built by us, others are built by third-party game developers. So one other thing that we did once we saw the initial traction that this concept of leaderboard payouts got, was we built a software developer kit. So now a game developer who thinks like, wow, you know, these instant leaderboard payouts are really interesting. Number one, me as the game developer, I'm now getting a fraction of every single gameplay. So I'm instantly monetized. But number two, it's an incentive mechanism. It's a positive feedback loop for the gamers themselves. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. But basically, you'd come to the arcade. This is probably the most popular game right now. It's called Jump. And before I play, I'm going to look. So here's the different leaderboards that, you know, exist for this particular game. This one, South Bay, and this one, Dive 35. Those are private parties that I've started. So like you can compete at any of these levels against every single person that's in the arcade, or you can start your own party that's like, you know, a private invite only between you and your friends. So
Cool.
anyways, I'm looking here. We'll look at the dollar leaderboard. So each one of these people has paid at least $1 to play on this leaderboard. And as you can see, the board goes 100 people deep. Okay. So the lowest score right now to make a leaderboard would be 3. And I just saw myself, I'm right there at 16. So let's see if I can beat that real quick. So I'm going to launch this game.
And your wallet is already pre-connected before you launch the game. So now you could just play the game, right?
Correct. My wallet, I sign in with hand cash. I can see like my funds and my wallet's already connected. So I have like $7.97 right now.
Yeah.
I also have these tokens, which I'll hit on in a second, or I could do credits if I wanted to in the future, but we can touch on that here in a sec. But yeah, my hand cash wallet is already connected. So as I come over here to Jump, the point of this game, it's pretty simple. I'm just going to try and bounce the ball from one pillar to the next. So I'll play for $1. And here we go. I'm not very good at this game, by the way, so don't judge me. But
don't judge you.
Here we go. Boom.
No judgment.
I got to beat 16. That's the goal here.
Okay, and your high score right now is 5, or score. Okay, I see.
So every time I hit one of these pillars, the number of jumps I get resets, but I only get 2 jumps per pillar. So I'm kind of killing it this game. This is
you are
as good as I've done for a while. All right, I just beat up.
Oh my gosh. Oh no.
All right. So
so 22.
22. So I placed number 80 on the leaderboard.
Okay.
I'm going to close out of here. But now what's interesting is let me show you what just happened in real time when I triggered that gameplay. Okay. So this is my hand cash wallet, right? This is what I just showed I was connected to. These are all micropayments I've gotten throughout today. So from the game Lost, from the game Streak 64, from the game Jump, this is all money I've made, right? From other people playing because I'm on these leaderboards, 2 1,000th of a cent, whatever. The game I just played, it cost me $1. You'll see that I only had to pay 90 cents. That's because I hold a player card, which I can show you that in a second. But basically, when I hit play game, 102 people, all of these people received one of these micropayments. So all these people got a notification on their phone just now of, hey, you just earned, 0.01 cents from Jump. From Joe's gameplay. So
the 90 cents that was there that you paid to play the game, the 90, they're getting fractional pieces, all of those people up to the 90 cents.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. And some of these people, like if you're in the first spot on the leaderboard, you get 10% of the gameplay. If you're in spot 100, you get like 0.2%. So based on where you are in that leaderboard, you make, more the higher you get. But yeah, so 102 people each got a portion of that 90 cents. And prior to Bitcoin and blockchain, like that's just not possible to do.
That isn't possible
with traditional payments.
Right. You're absolutely correct. Now I must ask, so you said that Haste gets a percentage, Haste the company gets a percentage of the gameplays. So where in that 90 cents is Haste getting their payout? Like, how is the positive feedback loop going?
So these are all outputs.
Right.
And let me see, Haste would be on here somewhere. There it is. So Haste
Okay.
Arcade and the Haste
Okay.
Loyalty Wallet, which I can touch on also, they're literally just addresses that on every single gameplay, right? Like a percentage of the gameplay is going to an output for Haste Arcade. So
Got it.
our take home on a gameplay, if it's a game that we built, is 10%. If it's a game that is submitted by a third party,
Yeah.
that game developer slot output still gets 10%. We split that 10%. Haste gets 30% of it. The game developer gets 70% of it. So that's where we're making money, and that's where the game developer makes money on every single transaction.
That's awesome. Definitely a win-win for everybody.
Yep. Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And again, that's demonstrating the utility of the blockchain, right? Like micropayments, that's a business model. That's how we make money. It's through, tenths of a cent at a time. So obviously you need a lot of scale for this model to generate significant revenue, but it's something that, if I'm an independent game developer, I now have a choice. I can either build a game and have to put a bunch of ads on it, which is a terrible user experience, or I can build a game and charge, 1 cent to play, which as a gamer, maybe I don't want to pay a cent, but is that really that much money? Like not really. And in essence, like I'm monetizing instantly from the very first person that plays this game. I don't need 50,000 people now to click on ads for me to make, any type of money. So that is, in my opinion, one of the beautiful things about blockchain is micropayments in the gaming industry and how that's going to allow game devs to monetize. And I'll give you a quick stat on that. So one of our very first games, it was actually the first game we put out. There was a venture capital group that wrote an article on how our leaderboard payouts could possibly benefit, game developers. And so they took Flappy Birds. I don't know. Do you remember that game?
Yeah, I do remember Flappy Birds. Absolutely.
So back in the day, Flappy Birds had about 50 million active users, in its peak. And this venture capital company, they estimated based on just, their research in advertising that Flappy Birds would be making about $50,000 a day from ad revenue at its peak. Well, they took our model and said, if the game developer would have been getting, the outputs from this leaderboard payouts, instead of making $50,000 from, the ads, with the same number of people playing, they would have been making roughly $2.8 million a day, which is a 56x increase in their revenue. So it's like, when you start to hear that as a game dev, like what makes sense to you,
Absolutely. I mean, well, this model obviously makes sense to me. I'm deep in the rabbit hole of blockchain and definitely see all of the benefits and where we're going with it. So when you talk about third-party developers, do you guys have a whole like screening process? People like submit applications. Hey, I want to build this game. Can I use Haste Arcade to host it? How does that whole process work?
Yeah, so the developers themselves, we have the SDK, which is just the documentation on how to implement the leaderboard payouts. The rest of it is really up to them. Like, we want them to focus on building great games and then using our technology to make their games, more incentivized for people to come play. Now, we do have, people on our team that if there's a game developer who has questions or they need help getting, their game to the finish line, like we have team members who will assist them in making sure that everything is working properly, everything's connected properly. But so far from the games that have been developed and submitted to the arcade, there hasn't really been the need for that much feedback. The SDK is really well documented, and it's not that hard of a thing to implement if you're familiar with game development. Now, the one thing I will say is, and this has definitely been an issue that's come up with game devs that have submitted stuff in the past, the majority of games that are built, you're not monetizing them, or you're not competing as a gamer to make money. So there's not really a huge incentive to cheat the game. Whereas now that we've introduced this ability to do that, game developers are having to build games in what's called a server authoritative state. And now I'm not the most technical, so I'm going to kind of leave it at that. But basically what it means is they have to build the front end and the back ends of their game a little bit differently than what would be, a traditional game development, just so that they can protect the information that, a decent hacker could look at and be like, oh, I can change this setting or whatever, within the code here on the front end and basically get the high score every time. So server authoritative is something we've had to teach people about. But I think as more and more games go into the play and earn model, whether it's Haste Arcade or other, blockchain projects, that's going to be something that's more and more common.
Yep, absolutely. So talk about, you did briefly touch on for a second, the player card. So there's an NFT aspect of this. This is not just crypto and blockchain, but you only paid 90 cents because you had the player card NFT. So you got to save 10 cents on that gameplay. How do people obtain player cards? And then at what point does it get activated?
Sure. So the idea behind the player card was two-sided. Number one, like Dan and I, the other co-founder, obviously our baseball background, we had our own cards when we were playing, right? And it was just cool. Like you can give them to your family or your friends. It's like, hey, look at me, I'm famous, all that stuff. It was like, well, the esports world, a lot of these people, they're athletes in their own right. And so it's like, we should create, cards for anyone that wants them. But how do we add utility to this card? We didn't want to make it something where it was just like, hey, I have my card and I paid $100 to do it, and it's just like an NFT that I can't do anything with. So because of how, layer one transactions work and NFTs that are actually on chain, which you can do that with BSV, we were able to basically say, hey, for this player card, whoever holds the Joey D card, anytime Joey D spends money, 10% of that spend is going to go to an output to this player card. So basically, I hold my player card. When I spend $1, 10% of it, 10 cents, is going to my player card, that player card that's held by me. So I'm getting a 10% discount. Now, what I can do with my card, though, and this is what some people have done, I can also sell my card to other people. So if someone goes on Haste and they say, man, Joe plays a lot, like I'm going to buy his player card and I can set the price. Like if I wanted to list my card right now, I'd be able to, it's going to have to connect me, I believe, to Nifty Jigs real quick. But basically I can set the price and say, hey, I'm going to sell my card for $1,000, right? It cost me $100 to mint. I'm selling it for $1,000. Whoever buys that card then gets 10% of my outputs. So at that point they say, dang, Joe spends a lot of money. I'll invest $1,000 because over the next 5 years, I think Joe's going to spend more than, $10,000 in this arcade. So I'm going to get my money back and then some on top of that. So
wow. So that card, because it's still tied to you, even though you sold it on the secondary market, they're still benefiting from every time you play.
Exactly.
Wow. That's very unique in the space. Because normally I feel like if you sell it on the secondary market, that, the creator of the original NFT gets their portion of that sale, whatever their percentage is. But then you don't still reap the benefits of having that NFT if you've sold it.
Exactly. So with this, the original minter is still going to get, I think, like a 2.5% royalty. But whoever ends up purchasing the card from the minter, they're going to get 10% of whoever, the player card is actually minted for. So I can come on here and list mine for, $500. I'm definitely not going to do that right now because I think someone would probably buy it. But in essence,
I was joking.
The process. And you can see here, like there's, let's see some of the cards that are for sale right now. Like some of these people, there's one dude he spent tens of thousands of dollars already. I think his card might have been bought. It might be mine, Leo. But in essence, like so he spent $6,300. He's selling his for $10,000. He's got 40,000 gameplays. Like that would be a card where, $10,000. Yeah, that sounds like it's pretty high, but maybe it's not. If this dude spent $6,000 in 1 year, over the course of 10 years, how much is he going to spend as we keep adding more games and more features? So you have a whole marketplace where these things are trading, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's very cool. I love what you guys are doing here. Very cool. So the question I had written down a question about, is staking required? But basically I think that staking is not necessarily required. You just pay in, or you put into your wallet what you want to play with, and then you can spend it as you go. And then you earn, like whatever you earn, you can also play with those earnings as well. So there's not real like anything like you have to put up front and hold it in a bucket and then be able to play with that. Correct? Did I understand correctly?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
so
cool.
you don't have to keep any money on the platform if you don't want to.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Now, one other thing I'd hit on real quick here. Again, this is, following our kind of ethos of like demonstrating the utility. We have a token, okay? And it's not, there was no like ICO, there was no pre-sale of the token. Basically, you earn these tokens the same way that if you went to a traditional arcade, played, pinball or something, whether you make a leaderboard or not, in most arcades, you're going to get like tickets from the machine after you play. And you can then redeem those tickets for, a stuffed animal or a remote control car that breaks a day later or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Well, with us, you are earning Haste tokens, which are these guys. And so I can redeem these Haste tokens for things like game collectibles. And what game collectibles are, so these are the ones that I have already. But in essence, these are NFTs that I can use within the games. So like that game Jump I showed you, if I wanted to buy a special ball and play with a different ball than the regular one, I could use my Haste tokens to buy that and get a 25% off discount. Or I could use actual like BSV and buy it for 50 cents. So you're earning these tokens that you can either redeem for these prizes, or because, they are a layer 1 token, you can actually trade them on an exchange and get, BSV back in return. You can then exchange your BSV into BTC or Ethereum or USDC or whatever. So basically every time you're playing, if you're doing a paid gameplay, whether you make a leaderboard or not, you're earning some type of reward. And we think that's something really cool that you can do with tokens. And I would see, tokens like that being used in any business model in the future. It just seems like a no-brainer for like loyalty programs. But instead of me only being able to use, say my Starbucks points at Starbucks, I can now exchange my Starbucks tokens into anything I want. I just think that's much more of an incentive for businesses in loyalty programs.
Well, that's definitely coming down the pipeline. I do see that in the near future. And I was reading an article recently, which I spoke about on a prior podcast episode, just about how there's going to be more like $1 trillion tokens than there are going to be like $1 trillion companies as we like navigate into this space, because like tokenomics are super important. And it's going to be how, like you said, how businesses transact with one another and with their people, their loyalty members, and doing that. So you guys are really ahead of the curve. You said this has launched. This is live. This is real. This is tangible. People can utilize today. How long are you guys in beta? Or are you guys full motion?
Yeah, it's fully out there. I would say there's probably some features that are still somewhat in beta, but when you go to the arcade right now, everything that's in there has been live for, when did we launch most of this stuff? Back in October last year. Within the last 3 to 6 months, we've done some, adjustments to the player card structures, but everything that's in there right now is tried and tested and working well. There are things on our roadmap that we're releasing, different game modes, different, concepts, different types of games. That stuff will be more of like a beta and testing. But again, it's just us kind of having fun with the blockchain and saying like, what are other cool things we could build that wouldn't be possible without this? And that's what I think we're, really excited about. And that's what you're going to continue to see from Haste, is just trying to put out new products. Maybe some of them aren't that exciting. Maybe some of them are really exciting, but it's just kind of demonstrating the utility of the blockchain in general.
Absolutely. And then maybe one day, like, I mean, obviously there's a lot of logistics that would need to go into this, but even doing like an IRL event where people like can meet up that are all Haste players, they have the player cards and they can all be in an arcade. Cause there's some, like, I love where this is going and I love this whole concept and what you guys have actually put out. But then there's also that fun aspect of, those coin ops are super popular. People just like go grab a beer and play some like nostalgic, arcade games. It'd be fun to like do an in real life event with you guys.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're not busy next week in Palm Beach, Florida, if you want to fly out there, there's a convention going on. I think it's called like Crypto Connect or something, but we've done a couple of these now where we will actually set up like they're calling it a Bitcade. And there's a nonprofit called the Bitcoin Association for Bitcoin SV, they've done events where like literally they'll set up, 4 or 5 different TVs with joysticks and all that and connect to our games. And yeah, you'll be drinking your cocktail, then you'll be going and playing like these games in this Bitcade setting. It's really cool.
Nice. I'll definitely have to check that out. And you saying that now makes me want to drop this episode a lot earlier than expected, just so people have the chance, if they're listening, they want to go out there. Do you know the dates on that?
The convention itself is the 20th and the 21st at the Palm Beach Convention Center. But we'll be doing more of these. I mean, the Bitcade is just a really easy way to, demonstrate it in real life. Like we did one in Dubai earlier this year.
How
We've
fun.
done them in Miami before. We'll be doing one in Los Angeles at the end of the year, hopefully in conjunction with USC. We're still kind of working on that. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see a world, a year or 2 years from now where you have actual physical Bitcades and people are going and having, fun with their friends, because that's what arcades are all about, right? It's a social environment.
Absolutely.
So let's bring the digital to the physical world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Bitcade. Definitely. I foresee that happening in the future, and like already getting a chance to know you during this podcast, I could see you guys bringing it to fruition. So congrats. That's going to be an amazing thing. Anything you want to add as we kind of wrap up or close this thing down?
I think that one last aspect I would want to hit on is, I get asked all the time from an investment standpoint, my friends or my parents or their friends who, everyone typically says like the same thing, like, I think it's the future, but I just don't get it. Right. And like, what should I invest in? Like what coin?
Right.
And when I hear that, I just kind of like, I chuckle, because I think a lot of people have been somewhat misled in the sense that like these blockchains, for the most part, like they don't have a board of directors. They don't have like quarterly earnings reports. They don't have any of the traditional fundamentals that professional traders on Wall Street are used to analyzing, right? With stocks and whatnot. So it's like, you can invest, quote unquote, in a coin, I guess, but like you're really just going off the charts at that point. They're not going to follow the same fundamentals that, a traditional stock would. Now, on the flip side, what I usually respond with is, trying to pick the right chain, good luck. You're gonna have to do a lot of work on that. But if you can find actual companies that are using a specific chain or whatever to build a product, that's what I personally would be interested in, is investing in companies that are using the blockchain to, again, build things that have not been able to been built yet. That's 100%. Where, when I put an investor hat on, that's what would excite me at this point. I think, unfortunately, the days of people getting in early, right, and making 100,000x returns, I don't think that's going to be happening anymore, at least on the chains. I think there's plenty of opportunity for that with the actual companies that are starting to build on these chains. So that's just a question I always get, and that's kind of the best I would put it together.
Well, great. That's a great response to anybody who's asking you those questions, because similar along the lines of what I say too. And people, always ask like, what are you investing in? What are you investing in? I really want people to understand how to do their own research and search for companies that are building on the blockchain, or look at fundamentals. Like, is this like a viable product that can be used in the future? What is it doing to change the world? Those kind of things, instead of just looking for meme coins or like you said, we don't know what chains are going to make it. And as of, I want to say like March of 2020, which we know that there's a lot more time that has surpassed since then, there was like 861 different blockchains. So now there's all these people out there trying to build their own layer ones because they think they're going to be the next Bitcoin or the next Ethereum. Not all 861 are going to make it, period. Yep.
I concur.
Awesome, Joe. Well, where can people find you in the Web 2 space?
Yeah, so I'm actually not that big on the social media. Like I have an Instagram, but if you're actually interested in, what we're talking about, at Haste Arcade on Twitter is probably the best place to get updates from us. We have our Instagram too, Haste Arcade. But yeah, I would definitely say check out our Twitter, or just, the site itself, hastearcade.com. Got a bunch of information on there. We have a pretty active Discord channel. So yeah, there's definitely a couple ways to get in touch with the Haste Arcade stuff.
And I'll be sure to link all of that in the show notes and on YouTube, so people have access to that easily and can connect with you guys. So awesome for you to be here. Thank you so much for your time. It's been such a fun episode. I've learned a lot myself. So thank you so much for that.
That really did fly by. Yeah. Thank you so much for
It
having me.
did.
This was great.
You're welcome. You made it. Congratulations. That wasn't so bad, was it? I hope you laughed and learned a little bit more about this Web3 universe and how simple and fun it can really be. Would you be so kind as to leave us a review and share it with your friends and family? It would mean so much to get this out to more people as we embark on the greatest transfer of wealth that has ever happened in human history. Can't wait to see you on the next one.